So hi everyone. My name is Oi, and Vicky, my sister's here. She's my sister, and I'm also friends with some of you. I'm a kids church volunteer, and while corporate-wise, I do operation management and consulting. Tonight's topic we will cover about love. My first question about love. And I love ensaymada, especially during the lockdown. I did not realize that, oh my gosh, I want ensaymada, okay? So you can hear a lot of my feelings saying, I love ensaymada. But then, what if a guy will approach me and say, I have to translate that in Tagalog. This is a popular movie 10 years ago called Second Chance, and between Popoy and Basha. And this is, what if a guy like Popoy would approach me and who's cute, tall, and all that, and then will tell me, lahat ginawa ko na, pero bakit ganun ka pa rin? Mahal na mahal kita, pero bakit ang sakit-sakit na? Would I still say the same thing to him na I love him the same way as I love the ensaymada? Maybe. Actually, hard to decide. Yun, actually that happened. So you will understand that there's different kinds of love. I will just go through very quickly the different kinds of love and do a deeper dive on the type of love that I want to discuss, which is God's love. So first type of love is Eros love, the popular crash landing on you. So romantic love. And Captain Ri, he was designed purposely to be charming, like everyone's ideal guy, old worldly, romantic, gentleman, always thinking about her. Then there's another kind of love, storge love. This is where you are connected because they're family, literally, by blood. This type of love actually can be quite powerful as well. This is an example of me about to start an important meeting, and then mom suddenly comes in and asks the famous line, paano reset ang password? Number one. Number two. Suddenly, she just sits there beside me and starts talking, having a Zoom session with her sister. My cousin on the other side messages me, is your mom there with you? And he's also about to start the meeting as well. So, what did I do? I actually had to tell my client, sorry, we had to reschedule. My mom's going to stay here for a while. So this is an example of family love. Another example is philia love. And normally, this type of friendship would kick off because you have a common interest. And this, the philia love or friendship, in this case, this photo is me and my high school classmates. We were stuck together for 4 years. And over the years, we were able to maintain a strong relationship. And even now, we always come up with a purpose and still run with our relationship. But that's not the type of love I want to talk about. For tonight, I want to talk about agape love. So, agape love, what is agape love? Okay, I'll give you an example. In the Bible, it talks about agape love, and I'll describe the friendship that I had with these two ladies. Okay, one is the one, some of you might know her. I'll call her G. So the one in the driver's seat, si G, has a very strong voice. Kasi yung pag nagsasalta siya, parang lahat exclamation point. So in an ordinary world, okay, G would be the worst combination of me. Why? Because my personality is I'm very transparent, and I also tend to speak whatever's in my head. I will point out things na might not be positive, and so we would have clashes. And then the woman with the brown hair, She also has a very strong opinion. That's, I'll call her Car. Yeah. Si Miss Car. As in, sometimes when we talk, the two of us, ang sinasabi niya, para nang may usok lumalabas sa ilong mo. Because I have a strong opinion, she also has a strong opinion. On the other hand though, but why would G and Car, the two of them, still invite me to their house? In fact, especially sa house ni Car, ilang beses na ako kumain doon, na pag uwi ng asawa niya, sasabihin ng asawa niya, ano to, bakit wala na natitirang butter? Sino kumain? Ako yun. Okay. Why would they still treat me really nicely? I met them 5 years ago. Each of them will just invite me when I'm not the nicest person in the world. Bakit? So let me describe what is agape love. And that's what they have been applying when I met them in church.
You've heard of Jesus. You probably know about one of his famous teachings called the Golden Rule. Do to others what you would want them to do to you. And this, actually, is a restatement of something else that Jesus said, that the meaning of life is to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, that's really beautiful, but what does he mean exactly by the word love? It's an unclear word in English, because you can love your mom and you can love pizza. And if the word love means the same thing in both of those cases, your mom's gonna feel real bad. So what did Jesus mean in his language? Well, first of all, this love your neighbor phrase is a quotation from the Hebrew scriptures, where the word for love is ahava. However, the language Jesus spoke and taught in from day to day, it was a cousin language of Hebrew, that is Aramaic, in which the word for love is rachma. But then, as Jesus' followers spread his teachings around the world, they translated them into Greek, using the word agape. But here's what's fascinating. The earliest followers of Jesus, who wrote the books of the New Testament in Greek, they didn't learn the meaning of agape by looking it up in ancient dictionaries. Rather, they looked to the teachings of Jesus and the story of his life to redefine their very concept of love. So one time, Jesus was asked about the most important command in the Jewish scriptures. And he first quoted from the ancient prayer in the Torah called the Shema. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart. So love for God is the most important thing. But then Jesus quickly followed up by saying another command from the Torah was also the most important, to love your neighbor as yourself. So which is the most important, loving God or loving your neighbor? Jesus' answer is yes. To ask the question means you don't get his point. For Jesus, they are two sides of the same coin. Your love for God will be expressed by your love for people, and vice versa, they're inseparable. And so this makes it clear that for Jesus, agape love is not primarily a feeling for someone else that happens to you, like our phrase, I fell in love. For Jesus, love is action. It's a choice that you make to seek the well-being of people other than yourself. Jesus also went on to teach that genuine love for God and others means seeking people's well-being without expecting anything in return, especially from people who are in difficult situations, who can't repay you even if they wanted to. According to Jesus, this kind of generous love reflects the very heartbeat of God. And he took this even further. Jesus said that the ultimate standard of authentic love is how well you treat the person that you can't stand. Or in his words, you shall love your enemy and do good to them, expecting nothing in return. For Jesus, this kind of enemy-embracing love imitates the very character of God himself. Now, we wouldn't be talking about Jesus still today if he had only said things like love your enemy. This is how he actually lived. Jesus was constantly helping and serving the people around him in very practical and tangible ways. And he consistently moved towards poor and hurting people who couldn't benefit him in return. He showed love for the forgotten ones, the people who usually fall through the cracks. And when Jesus eventually marched into Jerusalem, he made himself an enemy of the leaders of his people by accusing them of hypocrisy and corruption. But then instead of attacking his enemies to overthrow them, he allowed them to kill him. Jesus died for the selfishness and corruption of his enemies because he loved them. After Easter morning, Jesus and then his followers claimed that it was the power of God's love for the world that was revealed in Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. As the Apostle Paul put it, God demonstrated his own agape for us in this: while we were still sinners, the Messiah died for us. Or in the words of the Apostle John, God's own agape was revealed when he sent his one and only Son into the world so that through him we could have life. And for John, then, this leads naturally to the conclusion, beloved ones, if that's how God has loved us, then we ought to show love for one another. So, Christian faith involves trusting that at the center of the universe is a being overflowing with love for his world, which means that the purpose of human existence is to receive this love that has come to us in Jesus and then to give it back out to others, creating an ecosystem of others-focused, self-giving love. And that's the New Testament meaning of agape love.
We all went through a preview of what is agape love. And let me share a little bit more on the attributes of agape. Example, God's love accepts you as is. In Romans chapter 15, verse 7, therefore, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God. God did not wait for you to become a better person before he welcomed you. God did not wait for you to stop lying. God did not wait for you to become prideful. Did not wait for you to be a nicer person before he welcomed you. He just welcomed you. That's it. That is God's love. Another is God pursued you first. And you'll see that in 1 John chapter 4, verse 10. It states, in this love, not that we had loved God, but he loved us. And he sent his son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. You'll also realize that God's love is quite generous. He's very generous that he would send his only son for us. Another attribute is that God's love for you has no end. You'll see that in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 3. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have continued my faithfulness in you. So God's love is everlasting. You'll hear in the movies laging sinasabi, hindi ko na kaya. But that's not God's love. God's love is just going to be steadfast, continue, no end. Okay? So, let me jump on then to the introduction of the upcoming topics that we are going to cover in the next few weeks. Okay, it's in the First Corinthians book, chapter 13, and you'll see this, especially in weddings. It's all about love, but surprise, surprise, this love that was described is actually under the context of agape love in the Greek version, or for the Latin, it's called caritas. Okay, I'll quickly go through it and go to the next slide. So it states here in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. I'm sure you heard this in a wedding already. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. It's not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And love never fails. Okay? We'll be going through all of these attributes in the next few weeks. So, in line with that, I want to give an introduction better on the First Corinthians book. Just a little bit more context on this, okay? So, First Corinthians was written by Paul, and what he did was he stayed in the city of Corinth. Corinth at the time is an economic powerhouse, as in it's thriving, it's doing very well. So Paul went there and shared about Jesus' life. So there were more and more followers. After a year and a half, he left. But then after a while, when he left the city of Corinth, he started to hear issues on how the people are having problems interacting with each other. So in a very broad context, Paul wrote this, especially about the topic of love, is it's used as a central role. Love here is used as a central role to serve and also to seek the well-being of others. In short, it's really to describe, to teach others. How do you treat each other? That's what this love is all about. One thing though, what you will realize before I end is that God is actually love. If you see in First John chapter 4, verse 7 and 8, beloved, let us love one another. Love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. So as I end this topic, I have two actions. This is the first action I have for you. So in my previous slide, I said God is love. The source of love is from God. So what if in the First Corinthians book chapter, you change all of the word love and it into the word God? How does it look like then? You start to understand God better. I'll read this and feel free to follow me. Okay? God is patient. God is kind. God does not envy. God does not boast. God is not proud. God is not rude. God is not self seeking. God is not easily angered. God keeps no records of wrongs. God does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. God will always protect, always trust, always hope, always perseveres. God never fails. That's our God. So, last action. Okay, action number two. Okay, as we go through the breakout topic, the topic that I want to before you go through the breakout, this is the topic that I hope everyone can discuss amongst yourself. What can you do to express God's love to you and to others more this week? Okay, let me end this topic with a prayer, and before you go through the breakout room. Okay, dear God, thank you again. Thank you for reminding us who you are. Thank you for just describing to us uh, what is love, what is God's love to us. Thank you for reminding us that how we should be treating ourselves, how we should also treat the people around us. I thank you again for this time, for the nice breakout room, and may your word be able to remind people how big, how majestic, how wonderful you are, how wonderful, especially your love is. And I seal this truth in your mighty name. Amen.